Hello. I hope you can hear me clearly. Can I get a mic check from someone, Maud or anyone in the chat? And hey, Liam, I'm sorry that you spend an inordinate amount of time waiting for me, but hopefully this stream will be worth it. It's been months in the making. Today we're going to talk about Marilyn Manson. And it's Monday. And true to Monday being the worst day of the week and the most effed up day of my life regularly, I will say that it's double audio. Really? You have an echo? Hmm. Anyone else? Hmm. Clearly, Commander, check and find Fishner double audio rabbits. Does that mean I'm coming in both ears? I don't understand. Let me know if there's something I need to fix. But anyway, Monday is effed up. That's why you got the damn outro for the intro, and you'll get it again at the end. I didn't bother to fix it. Okay. Mm. Oh no, you're okay. All right. I said interestingly not in order. Oh, thank you, Liam. I appreciate it. My friend, I would never want to keep you waiting. Not unnecessarily. But yeah. You have your audio in stereo, Fish Nerd? Good. I'm glad. It should be that way. Today is a full moon too, just saying. Well, I usually do okay, Shill, with the full moon. But I hate Mondays. I hate Mondays. I hate Mondays. I hate Mondays. I really do. And it's been a Monday. I've had a day, but I wasn't going to reschedule this because I've been looking forward to bringing you guys up to date on Marilyn Manson for a while. Now, things progressed kind of slowly with those cases, and there were quite a few. So we're going to have to go over the last time we did a really in-depth one was at the end of March. We did do a little bit here and there, just mentioning casually some stuff. We do keep up to date with Justice for Marilyn Manson. Kelly is doing a fantastic job of keeping on top of that, getting opinions known, making the small nuances that need to be said that some of us just can't say, but she does a bang up job. And I'm going to ask you all to check her out too. There's a link to her below. She's got a Twitter and she's got a website for tracking all of this. There are several accounts that do a good job. I've mentioned Colonel Kurtz before. She's an advocate for this, for people getting wrongly accused. She was on the side of right with Johnny Depp, and I believe she's on the side of right here with Marilyn Manson too. Yes, I'm a little biased. And I didn't start out that way. When I first started covering Marilyn Manson, I reported on all of the victim statements. And I thought that it was, wow, there's so many of them. It's coordinated. There's like all of them on February 2nd of that year, all coming out. 16 of them documented everything that was said. And then wanted to give Marilyn Manson his piece too and recorded what he said. Okay. And then I started following each individual case. And what I noticed and what I believe is that we're looking at another coordinated effort. And it does leave a bad taste in my mouth to say that because, we haven't gone to trial yet. And, I hate to pass judgment without everything being submitted into court and seeing both sides back and forth. What I have seen already on what they've tried to put in as evidence did indicate quite a bit of shenanigans. And actually, I will leave it up to you to decide at the end of this stream and the ones that I point you to. Another good stream was on this issue is a good take, a legal take, actually. I would ask you to look at Andrea Burkhart and her take on the Manson cases, any of her videos on it. And she does actually stream with Colonel Kurtz, and I have listed the video that I'll be indicating in this stream that they just did recently is listed below for you to check out for yourselves. Okay. Um, hmm. It's disconcerting, Juju, because I'm being biased or because I'm opening up the whole stream with it. Like, Okay, what we're talking about, rabbits, just to give you a brief synopsis. I have a whole playlist, by the way, rabbits. I've been following it for a couple of years. But a few years ago, on February 2nd, a slew of women came out accusing Marilyn Manson of all kinds of abuse and sadistic acts against them, grooming and whatnot. All similar stories. Okay. Evan Rachel Woods in Ilmogor with the Phoenix Corp, a production company, put out a documentary, and they mentioned Manson a lot, and they accused him of all kinds of things in it. Mm. And he started with a civil lawsuit against them after this. Okay. The accusations came out without any lawsuits. I want to say that first. It was a public relations dump. Okay. It appeared very coordinated. They all had similar stories. I mean, we all know Marilyn Manson had a type. You can look at his girlfriends. They all ended up dressing the same body types, same, but that's not unusual. A man's allowed to have a type, so's a woman. Any human can. We're attracted to what we're attracted to. We like what we like. And you know what? Regardless of the acts that they are saying were committed on them or with them, if you're two consenting adults, and they do all admit to be consenting adults at the time, then we're not going to kink shame you for any of it. Okay. Long and short of it, several of these cases have been dropped, rabbits, because after the big hullabaloo and Marilyn Manson deciding to defend himself, several of them decided to come forward with lawsuits. His assistant, Ashley, she came forward, and Ashley Waters put out a lawsuit, which was dropped. It was dropped for several different reasons. First time was for untimely filing. Second time was for unsubstantiated. Several things like this. Okay. Then there was another Ashley Smith Klein. Okay. And she was in a relationship with him too. She filed a lawsuit. So did Esme Bianco. She was in a relationship with him back and forth for years, long distance, and then not lived with him. She filed a lawsuit. You know who didn't file a lawsuit against him? Was Evan Rachel Woods, who after 10 years of singing his praises, all during their relationship and even after, until she met Ilmogor, and they came forward with this documentary idea, there wasn't a problem with Marilyn Manson that anybody heard about. Now, I have to praise Evan Rachel Wood for a couple of things, because I stood behind her as she went to Congress and she got some changes to legislation that were necessary for abuse victims. We got the time frame for specimens to be saved and preserved, how it doesn't go into codex, but they get additional time now to press charges, how the whole process is more decent to the individual pressing charges or even reporting the crime. She testified, about that. And at that point, she did not name Marilyn Manson as her abuser. She said she was a victim of abuse or felt that way. Well, she did not say who or anything. And she didn't for quite some time. Well, she did. And I find it odd that a victim of abuse who claims to be an advocate, instead of doing justice, actually chose to name him publicly while doing a documentary. You see, that kind of sits in my crow a little bit. And I understand people need to do what they need to do. I do. But this is how I started to turn, just so you know where my attitude's coming from. I watched it unfold like a bad play, like a real bad play. Well, now, look, that's the short and fall of it. Where we are now is several cases that have folded up and gone away, rabbits, and several that are still going on that we're going to talk about. But the main one is that Brian Warner decided to sue Evan Rachel Woods and Ilmogor for false allegations against him, and for some heavy felony stuff too, like harassment, breaking into his email, sending people to his house to swat him on a fake phone call. And one of the things he did put in his lawsuit was that he felt that they organized and coerced all of these women, showed them false evidence, and kind of coordinated the effort on February 2nd for everybody to come out against him. in order to promote their documentary, which, by the way, did I forget to say that dropped soon after the public relations smear on Brian Warner, Marilyn Mason, Marilyn, Ma- Marilyn Manson, Brian Warner, publicly smeared on February 2nd, and lo and behold, this documentary by Phoenix, Evan Rachel Woods and Ilmo Gore comes out soon after. You tell me, does it stink like fish? Kind of both. Rabbits, they're claiming he's an abuser, and the victims are being abusive and acting like they were abused. Yes, I would say it's pretty fishy. And at this point, there's no court that is actually let us determine it yet. It's all just been in litigation, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Well, microwave fish really stinks, Juju. So I think you, what is that saying? I think you're picking up when I'm laying down. I think you are. Yeah. Because yeah, it kind of stinks. It really does. Well, that's where I am with it. But that's the brief on it. Rabbits, there's a lot more detail in the videos of the past about it. But I am surely thinking that it does not look copacetic. And some of the things that have happened since have been quite discerning. First of all, we all know this is coming out of LA, right? And we've already heard through other cases some issues with LA County Police Department and everything. We do know that Evan Rachel Wood does have pretty strong connections to Susan Rubio, the state senator there. And that the DA in LA County, their mission is on abuse. They got a strong statement on abusers there, which I find rather odd considering the Masterson case. Yeah, considering what happened there, the investigations that started, stopped, stalled, got the runaround there. Anyway, but that seems to be their currently, well, their number one priority is the protection of abuse victims and the prosecution of abuse crimes. I would say that the LA Police Department still says that they are investigating Brian Warner for alleged crimes of abuse and mistreatment from years ago and still ongoing. And that is part of the problem that we're going to talk about today. Well, let me bring up my presentation and let's start with what we know to date. Okay? Okay. And I'll be checking. I didn't get to say hi to everybody in chat individually, but I appreciate every single one of you. I really do. I'm glad that you're here. I will try to check for questions periodically. Well, for right now, okay, let's just, all right, let's do a little bit of a refresher here. Okay, so, this is Esme Bianco. Esme Bianco's case on January 17th, earlier this year, they had a meeting. Esme Bianco, her attorney, which of course, and then Henry King, attorney for Brian Warner, Marilyn Manson, they reached a settlement, insurance based and everything, back and forth between the two of them. To remind those of you that may not be as familiar, or it's been such a while, Esme Bianco's case also tried to use fair labor practices, because when Marilyn Manson wanted Esme Bianco to come over from England to work with him and all, he used immigration status that she would be working. And then she claims that she never did the work or never got paid for the work that was actually supposed to happen in order for that paperwork to be legit. So there was some loopholes in there that needed to be settled with, because, you could say whatever you want on a piece of paper and you can have an agreement with someone, but then of course they change their mind about it and then you're in a hell of a lot of trouble. And it did look like that might have been one part of the case that Esme Bianco brought against Marilyn Manson, aka Brian Warner, that could have held water for a little bit, even though it was ridiculous, because she was like, at his house doing housework, but she was supposed to be a consultant for some video and do some work with him, and it didn't pan out. She also claimed that there was some contract violations and things like that with him trying to promise her other things or working with other people. So they did negotiate out, and it was dropped. Okay, the case was officially dismissed by the judge on the 25th after they received in private the notice of settlement and what the parties actually agreed to. Neither party is putting in detail, and they don't have to. As a matter of law, they do not have to, only to the court, put in what the settlement was, just that they have agreed. And but the only thing we do know is that it was officially closed with prejudice, each party to pay their own costs, fees, and attorney expenses, and that it was privated. Okay, so that case, and here's Esme again. This is a more recent picture. Okay. And these were the statements that they put out. Jay Elwinger said Miss Bianco has agreed to resolve her claims against Brian Warner and Marilyn Manson Records, and I ordered to move on with her life and career. In order to move on, and I forgot the in. Howard King, who is the attorney for Brian Warner, Marilyn Manson. Miss Bianco has agreed to resolve her claims against Brian Warner and Marilyn Manson Records Inc. Because of the work contract, his record label was named, dismissed with prejudice. With prejudice. Yep, it is. Brings us to another case. This was Jane Doe. Jane Doe's not Jane Doe anymore. Nope. Jane Doe is not Jane Doe anymore. This is Bianca LA. She was a young girl, and now she's made after the fact. This is the most recent filing from January. She had filed under Jane Doe, and then it was refiled or federally with her name after. She had filed with as Jane Doe to keep her privacy. But based on the claims and the statements that she made, the media did kind of figure out who she was, and so did some other people, and it started getting bandied around. So there was really no point in keeping it private the way that it was anymore. And it all got refiled and opened with her name on it. So Bianca LA, okay, they did send notice in revealing that she was who she said she to be, and that they were talking about this civil case coming through in fall of 2023, which was going to be in a couple of months. Okay, but there's some updates on here. It's not going to be. Okay. This was her Brian Warner's statement from Howard King. He said that Brian Warner does not know this individual, has no recollection of ever having met her 28 years ago. He certainly was never intimate with her. He went on to call Doe's allegations a fabricated tale and added that even the most minimal amount of scrutiny reveals the obvious discrepancies in her ever-shifting stories, as well as her extensive collusion with other false accusers. Brian will not submit to the shakedown, and the courts won't fall for it either. A substantial part of the lawsuit claims that Warner's record labels were well aware of defendant Warner's obsession with sexual violence and childhood sexual assault. Marilyn Manson was Nine Inch Nails front man Trent Reznor's first signing to his Nothing Records, and Bianca, she actually listed Trent Reznor's record company too, because of when she said that all of this happened. Okay, now the point I want to bring up in regards to this law case, and let me just take this down for a second so you're not staring at words, is that she alleges that things happened when she was a minor. And in her case, she's got all these symbols and she's actually indicate that he's a predator because of certain symbols and artwork that is used in all the promotions for his shows and his artwork and everything like that. To me, it seemed a bit outlandish, okay? And I'd also like to remind you that Bianca alone, she has actually made so many different stories and given interviews well before she filed this lawsuit that are documented about things that happened. And there is a timeline that kind of goes against a lot of what she's saying, And I'm with you, Mrs. Cassandra. She really pissed me off when she went for Nin. Like, you don't go for 9-inch nails. Okay. Now, Trent Reznor didn't like the lifestyle too much that was going on with Marilyn Manson. They were friends for a long time. They grew up in the same area, in Chicago, in Ohio. Mm. They know each other. They hung together, but they separated a little bit. Okay. And people are trying to use that as a big thing, but maybe not so much. We don't know what happened. Friends do separate. Okay. Well, I do know that is that while she says she was a minor and all this is going on, she has been claimed in several different reports to be 16, 17, 19, and or 20 when the alleged things happened. This makes it kind of dicey because you got to kind of have to prove these allegations. But what worries me is that these kind of allegations are so damaging, whether they're proven or not. With all of this out there before a court of law, before actually being able to defend himself and throw it out, even if he can throw it all out, people are still saying it. They use those words, child predatory behavior against minors, sexual predatory behavior against minors. That was a low blow. Okay. And I want to bring to mind that this lawsuit was filed later. hmm Later, after they lost some of their other witnesses. Okay. Ashley Walters' case dismissed, not even able to file it again. Not. She cannot file again. SmithKline, she chose to drop her case and it was dismissed because she didn't get an attorney in time. And then bigger things happened. So not only do we have the Jane Doe case going on, okay, but SmithKline had then recanted all her statements against Marilyn Manson. She went to Marilyn Manson's attorneys and tried to give testimony, gave an affidavit to recant everything to be submitted in the Evan Rachel Woods case, the one that Brian Warner has filed. Okay. I'm telling you that got to be really, really messy. And that comes up to the things I want to talk about that legally happened with these two cases. D Rabbits, do you mean the original accusation made in regular court or social media of Bianca Elaine or SmithKline that we're talking about? Because Bianca Elaine did not become named until recently, and she didn't make any accusations. She talked about things that happened on the tour and having a relationship with Marilyn Manson, but never about it being abusive or anything like that prior in her interviews or anything like that. So it was actually public in social media that she talked about all the events, and then she filed the lawsuit with a whole different spin on it. Yeah, it was kind of public too. She has been doing now. She's been speaking out now again, but her lawyers kind of got to clamp down again. So now I know it sounds like I'm just against the victims here. And I will say that they do believe that they're victims. That's the claim that they're making. So I'll use that language. I will honor them that this is what they feel. But let's talk about time frames and things like that. The actual time frames for most of the accusations don't actually work. Especially if everything that happened with Bianca Elaine is actually crosses over the stuff with Ashley Waters and Ashley SmithKline, Esme Bianca, and then Evan Rachel Woods. Now, when he was in relationships with all these women, he was just in relationships with them. And they would, it's kind of fantastical, her accusations, really, because they really don't prove any of the physical parts of it. It's all really kind of listed as in, he must be a predator because look at look at the symbols on the brochures. Look at the symbols on the advertising. Like, look at his songs and his music. And I'd have to remind everyone that the character of Marilyn Manson is an artist, a creator, a musician, very avant-garde, very different, profoundly unique. He's influenced music, he's influenced art, he's even influenced fashion. Okay? But that is not the man. The man is Brian Warner. And everyone who's ever dated him has said that he's completely different than the character on stage. That Evan Rachel Wood spoke so glowingly of him during her relationship with him that I had trouble thinking that it was the same person she was talking about. We have to keep that in mind. The artist is not the man. What he portrays on stage is not maybe what he does in his private life. But they're suing the man. And they're ruining the man with these accusations. And the artist also. He lost his record contract. It was pretty hard. He's coming back. He's putting out new music, I'm happy to say. He's still trying very hard. His countersuit was to go against the accusations. He did not want to go down without a fight. And I don't blame him. But the fight's getting harder. And let me tell you how. Because the LAPD confiscated in 2021, due to their investigation, all of the peripheral devices and electronic devices of one Brian Warner, aka Marilyn Manson, because he's under investigation for these accusations that were made. And they haven't concluded their investigation. And they are refusing to return said devices, which have all the correspondence that he's had in the past with Evan Rachel Woods and Bianca and several other people that can help defend him. He says that he needs these to help with his defense. Okay. And with they both Bianca Lane's attorneys and Brian Warner's attorneys have filed a joint resolution to the court to say we would like to stay a motion on the court date coming up because we can't be ready. And on Brian's side, it's because how is he supposed to prepare a defense without the evidence to prepare the defense? They got his hands tied. Okay. Now, they really should work with him to do that. He is entitled to a fair court hearing and trial and an adequate defense. But if you cannot, get your devices or look at anything, how are you going to do that? Right? Mm. Exactly, Slee. You can look for always back up your devices, yes, but you got to do source, and there's all that like documenting where everything comes from. You know what I mean? So it does make it really kind of hairy for them. But anyway, both parties, we are waiting now to hear from the judge on since both parties want to stay going forward for right now until and get a later court date. That's where we are now. Okay. There was a motion to dismiss the charges filed by Howard King for Brian Warner again in the Bianca Lane suit. Okay. And they did concede to some of it. They kind of changed around allegations of the minor thing a little bit here and there. There were some points made regularly. They did not dismiss the case though. But the judge did say that there were certain things that were not founded and did not apply and moved it all over. But it's a federal civil suit now, and it's still going forward. It didn't get tossed, and we're just waiting to see on the later trial date. And that would be most of what I have on her. Now, let's go back to another one. Let's go on with Ashley Morgan Smith-Klein. Okay. Now, this case is already dropped. All right. But what happened here, actually, if it's really detrimental to Brian's case in a way, is kind of unfortunate because here we have Ashley Morgan Smith-Klein saying that she recants everything in her depositions and her statements against Brian Warner that she's trying to say it didn't happen. She actually gave a statement to Brian Warner's attorney, Howard King, in those in the office, that she was coerced. One of the claims in Brian Warner's claim against Evan Rachel Woods and Ilma Gore is that they organized a conspiracy against him. by coercing or giving evidence of falsified evidence to women to say, well, if you were abused, if you were mistreated by him, let's just, put an end to this. Let's get you some support. There are more women like you. Made it seem like there were so many. And Liam did put in the chat that he had heard that Il Mogul made accusations, public accusations, that he used a minor during his groupie video, and that minor was no longer existing, and that she was so upset about what happened to her that she took her own life. The woman who was actually used in that video put out a statement. It said she was 21 at the time. Everything that happened in that video was orchestrated ahead of time, and she was in agreement with, and she's alive and well, and she has never spoken to Il Mogul about anything. Now, I tell you that information because it's going to become quite pertinent here when you see what happened in court recently. All right. But let's get through Ashley Morgan Smith line first. Just so you could see that why, even though Ashley Morgan Smith line recanted and gave the testimony to Howard King, a signed affidavit, they submitted it to the court. The court will not allow it. And I'll tell you why. Because, all right, because here's the one thing. Brian Warner doesn't have access to his electronics, okay? But they do, okay? They still have access to all of their stuff, all right? Except for like the iPad that was taken from Il Mogul and was submitted for evidence. But she'll be getting it back soon, and I'll tell you about that. Okay. So Judge Teresa Burdett denied adding Smith line's recant to the case. She actually just struck it. Won't put it in. She said because Wood submitted screenshots and comments that Smithline had made on Wood's IG in 2019 that supported her claims in her lawsuit. Text reaffirming initial claims of his abuse, and a voicemail message that Simlov made with one of her friends, insinuating that Warner's attorney Howard King was pressuring her to turn on the other girls and say it was all a ruse. Now, that is what got submitted to the court by Evan Rachel Woods and Il Mogul to try to hold Smithline's recant out. Now, Smithline recant, she came out after the recant and she did it publicly. She said, yes, I made comments on the Instagrams because I was suing him and I thought that was the right thing to support what I was saying. She agreed with everything. When she said that they were pressuring her, she was deciding at that time whether she was going to actually turn or not. And she did have that conversation, and she admits to having that conversation. But it just shows you how things can be used in a certain context for a certain way. Because the judge didn't hear from Ashley Smithline herself. She didn't bring her in and ask her, because that's not what they do. They just look at what gets presented and they judged on it. Okay. But Ashley Smithline said, yeah, I made those tweets. I made lots of tweets, but I'm making tweets now. Well, here's the thing. Ashley Smithline has been an erratic person all during this process. She did interviews with her own attorney that made people question if anything she was saying was the truth. So I understand why the judge is going to toss all of it out, because you don't know who to believe anymore. You really don't. But this kind of hurt because it looked like, wow, here's some evidence against the meat and bones of what Brian Warner keeps saying. They're targeting me. They're harassing me and coming after me for their own financial gain to make this documentary. They did this on purpose. There was no problem. They're manufacturing a problem because they think it'll make me look bad and it's going to make them look great and it's going to move that documentary forward. He has a valid point. Their point is, we made a documentary because you were horrible and we wanted everybody to know. That's basically exactly what they said. Okay. That's the answer to that. Okay. Now, here's what the anti-slapp is a problem, because the anti-slapp would protect Evan Rachel Wood's right to do a documentary about something she thinks happened, because it's like something that happened to her and she should be allowed to say it because that's her rights. Okay. That's her rights. And it is, as long as it's true and substantiated. Okay. And as long as she isn't like going out of her way to harass or doing any other illegal kind of activities in order to do it. But that's the problem. Brian Warner says she has. There is another thing that came up in the anti-slap motions. Judge Teresa Bedet dismissed the part of Brian Warner's claim that disputed the FBI with the FBI letter in it, not the FBI letter in general. She would not weigh in on whether that was legit or not. And for anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about, we're talking about the FBI letter that was submitted in the custody case for her child with her ex, where she forged the name of an FBI agent who has been contacted by Brian Warner's attorney, Burke, and was confirmed that she did not contact her. All right, but that wasn't her phone number. Okay, or she wasn't working on a case with her. All right, that there was no open investigation at the time, that the letter was false. She did not write that letter. Okay, it was submitted in a custody case because Evan Rachel Woods wanted to take her child out of the state, saying that she was being harassed by Brian Warner groupies and fans. Okay, and that she was in fear for her life. Well, she just wanted to move out of state. Okay, because everything that happened afterwards. I mean, the letter is definitely been debunked as not real. Okay, the evidence that showed that, as far as correspondence between Ilma Gore and Evan Rachel Woods, was submitted by Ilma Gore's twin, Bryce, the iPad that the documents were on. And Bryce gave testimony that she was watching Ilma Gore converse back and forth with Evan Rachel Woods while working on this letter, and gave testimony to it. Okay. Well, they're not going to, the judge is not actually weighing in on whether or not the FBI letter is true or valid. But what she is going to say is that there's no evidence they used that letter to coerce anyone. Okay. On the iPad was copies of sticky notes that had things listed, but she said it wasn't enough. Okay. She said she tossed out the section of Brian Warner's case that alleged that they were using the checklist and the FBI letter on this iPad for the women to make abuse claims against Manson, that they were using it to coerce everybody. Okay. So that part has been taken out. Now, that part would be under part of the defamation part. Okay. Um Brian Warner's case is not defamation. He has other claims in there that are still valid. The conspiracy part is still part of that, is still all in there. Okay. The actual faking of evidence is in there. Okay. The harassment, Ilma Gore calling in for his home to be raided, the investigation is in there. Ilma Gore cracking into his email, hacking into his email, stealing his private information, harassing, all of that is all still in there. The case is still live. Now, the news media had took the run of these parts of the anti-slap being actually held up to protect Evan Rachel's Wood's rights as a victim. They took that as meaning that his case was like done over with. But there's a lot more to his case than that, and they can't just wipe it out. It's still going forward. Right now, Howard King says that he's going to be appealing based on the anti-slap motions, the ruling of Judge Teresa Baudet, however, Baudet. I'm saying it wrong all three times, I'm sure. Well, anyway, Judge B, she put her ruling. It took a while, okay, but it came through, and now we are pending a trial date because we are still looking at an appeal of this anti-slap ruling. Okay, I know Howard King is not going to sit down and let this one go, because there was plenty of evidence that letter was false, and why would they create it if they didn't need it, right? Okay. The other thing that happened in the Wood Gore case, okay, besides not being able to use Smith Klein's testimony, besides several parts of the anti-slap being held up, and parts of his Brian Warner's lawsuit being dismissed. Okay. There was a joint ruling on sealed letters. There were a couple of anonymous letters that were sent in that were immediately sealed. The both parties requested they were resealed. And they're still sealed and they're not in evidence yet. Okay. Well, as I say, again, we're still waiting on the anti-slapp. Now, those letters were kind of ridiculous. People just interfering, so to speak. They really should get a lawyer and file something, but you know how that goes. Is it Liam, is it Boudat? I don't know. That would actually make it easy for me if it was Boudat or Bidet. Like, I'd have no idea how to say it, honestly. I really don't. I'm not going to worry about it. We'll just call her Judge B for now. I don't want to be disrespectful for the judge. I think they're doing the best that they can. I am a little sus about what's going on with the LA Police Department because, like, to actually try to go forward without your evidence, personal belongings, and everything. And how long does an investigation have to stay open? I mean, understandably, investigations are different than civil lawsuits. Civil lawsuits are civil, kind of public, everything's open. We don't know what's going on in the investigation. Um, I'd like to refer to you to Justice for Marilyn Manson. Their IG has a wonderful little video there that I would like you to go look at in regards to could it be possible that because of this FBI letter that Evan Rachel Woods is even under investigation at this time? Because when, Ms. Burke, the attorney for a well-respected attorney, gave an affidavit to the court stating that she did contact the FBI agent that was listed falsely as writing the letter, that they were checking into things. Now, investigations are private, so we don't have any other information. Well, perhaps one of the reasons we haven't heard anything is the investigation is still going on. Because you know damn well if Evan Rachel Woods was cleared of anything, she'd be ringing bells from the rafters. There'd be cheers. They would be all over Twitter and Instagram because they tweet and Instagram about everything. Okay. And they're all over the media constantly. Okay. Well, I do have some feels about this. But anyway, Justice for Marilyn Manson is the name of the website and also the IG. And the videos are well done, short, sweet, and right to the point. And we just ask the question. I mean, we're not trying to slander anybody here, but I would say, like, if they're both under investigation. Of course, Evan Rachel Woods is under FBI investigation because she falsely indicated an FBI agent. Okay. That's, I don't know. Am I wrong? Isn't that a federal crime to impersonate an FBI agent in any manner? Or is it also not against the law to submit any kind of falsified education, even in family court against your spouse? Wasn't that a crime? Is it Boudet? Thank you. Boudet or Boudet. Thank you, always createful. I appreciate you. I really do. Why did they begin this campaign? I don't know. Like I said, there was a documentary coming out. It went from nothing to a whole lot pretty quick. He is a contrary kind of personality. I think it's easy to put this kind of thing on him based on his art, his music. Juju, it's when Evan Rachel Woods told her story briefly, she said she didn't have any problem with it at the time. It wasn't until years later that she decided that it was against her will. And I do think that maybe she does feel like she did things she didn't really want to. Well, she never said no, and that's a fine line. You don't get to look back at your past. I mean, come on. I know it's not the same thing, but everybody in that chat, have you not gone on a date with someone you were like, why did I do that? Like, I didn't really want to do that, but I did that. You have to at least admit you went on the date, right? You have to at least admit that that happened. and the other person didn't make you do it. They didn't make you go on that date. You might regret it later. You don't want to admit it in public, but you did it. And nobody held a gun to your head to do it. And that's what I think kind of sort of is going on here. I don't mean to make light of it, but I do believe that if she does have regret and grew as a person about the lifestyle she led with Marilyn Manson, aka Brian Warner, that's one thing. But to accuse him of all of this as if she was held against her will. She says she was beaten on days she wore a backless dress. Does that actually sound like someone you know? Another case that we had who swore to a courtroom that she was beaten so bad that the welts and everything on her back was so visible she couldn't get dressed. And the very next night was in a backless dress with a perfect back on an awards carpet. And she forgets that photographs say everything, right? Mm. Well, some people think that their words matter more than anything. Okay. But I do think that there is regret here. I mean, it's unfortunate. I do think that there were a lifestyle that was different than what everybody would say is just every day. But that doesn't mean it's wrong between two consenting adults. It doesn't. Hmm. Yeah, right, Liam. She was dragged over broken glass, and the next day she was perfectly fine. I know you know who I'm talking about there. I know you know. Yeah, I know we are definitely talking about the other Me Too absconder of the movement. You know, I was all for Me Too in the beginning. I do not like what it's become, and I can't stand behind how it's being used. It's being used regrettably. Okay, this is actually the letter. This is actually the stipulation by the court saying that both of those letters will be sealed. Both parties have agreed to it. It's not just something that the court is doing on its own. Both parties had asked for it. Um, and so that's how it's gonna go with this one. And this is in regards to the Evan Rachel Wood case again. Those letters. All right. Um, all right, let me go over the chat a little bit because I haven't been looking for questions and I want to make sure that I do. Mm. Commander, I am pretty sure impersonating an agent itself is illegal if using the seal of the United States or the government. They did try to use some wonky letterhead stuff that they created. What are the ages of the women? Okay, the ages of the women now are 30s to 40s. Okay, but it happened years ago, like when they were young. Some are claiming when they were 19, 20. Okay, Evan Rachel Woods dated him when she was young. Admits to having conversations with him, but never anything intimate or a committed relationship until after she was legal age. Several women have said that. That's not necessarily wrong, but that does lead to some of them saying that there may be grooming going on. Okay. However, several of his old flames, like Rose McGowan, came out and praised him. She was very young when she met him. She said he was never anything but kind, that they had an alternate lifestyle, but it wasn't anything without consent. Rocket Couch said, not gonna lie, there was a moment when I was wondering if Judge B was Juju B. No, not for this case. Not for this case, but Hello, Vermilion. Hey, Carrie Ann, Sleet, Anna. Oh, so many of you. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, Mary Beth. Sorry you didn't get a notification. YouTube doesn't like me periodically, and especially on Mondays. They don't like me. Hmm. Legally, there. Okay, that's a very good point, Carrie Ann Chrysler. Thank you very much for bringing it up, Carrie Ann. I can always count on you. And looking just below the surface there a little bit, there is no documented proof of any violence in Brian Warner's life with any relationships. There are no calls to his house for domestic abuse. There is none of these. Like they're talking about, they were held against their will, locked up in closets. You think when they got out they would have made a complaint, but no, that didn't happen. Mm-mm. No. um they're saying that all this stuff happened in front of witnesses, but yet they can't produce the witnesses. Yeah, because they say collectively, they say that it's because of his power and his fame that no one will speak against him. That he is so horrible that the mere mention of anything against him will get you ostracized and like off the planet. I don't see that happening. 16 women came out against him on February 2nd, way back several years ago. And you know what? They're all still around, kicking and fussing and doing whatever. Some of them actually recanted and just went off, decided not to be a part of anything. Not that many wanted to put their feet to the fire and file lawsuits about what happened, especially when they had victim advocacy programs that would benefit them with the statute of limitations and lawyers and everything else. They had groups. They now had the Me Too movement behind them. Powerful attorneys, money, donations. All you had to do was speak publicly for them. They could have done it, but it was only this couple, three, who decided to do it. Okay. One of them being his personal assistant, who was fired and rehired and fired and rehired several times, and who did not, by the way, file her lawsuit until her last firing. A month after her last firing, she decided that, hey, I've had enough. She filed. That case got dismissed, and she can't refile it. There's no documented violence on Brian's record unless you look at his stage presence, and then he's a little rude on there, I will admit. It's a little rough. Is that lawyer known to cross ethical lines in his cases? Do you mean Howard King? No, he's not. And Brian Warner's also had Burke, which is she's an excellent lawyer of high standing. And she's not known to cross it either. Howard King has not been accused of anything. The conversation that was submitted is Smith-Kline admits she was going back and forth saying, I'm feeling pressure, because they said I should actually, if this is what happened, I should talk about it with them and I should give an affidavit. Yes, the attorney did ask her to give an affidavit if that's what happened, because she was calling him, telling him that she was coerced into doing all of this. And he was saying, yes, you need to give names, you need to say who, and you need to give an affidavit. That's the only way to be clear of it. And she felt pressure and she went whining to one of her friends about it. Because if you think about it let's just look at it from Ashley's point of view right now. She's in a pickle. She's been with this women from the beginning, working and with them to orchestrate all of this based on what she said. I'm not summation here. I'm going based on what her statements were. She was working with them all along. She believed she was a victim. She did a very well thought out lawsuit, got lawyers, paid lawyers, did the whole thing. Okay. Filed. All right. Went forward with it, went through a few motions with it, and then found out that her lawyer was the same lawyer as Esme Bianco. And that she was supposed to do a testimony, do an affidavit for Esme Bianco. And he gave false testimony to the schedulers for the court for that, saying that she was out of the country and not available to do it when she wasn't. Okay. He was doing things without her knowledge. This is her words, not mine. This is what she testified to. And so she just didn't want him to be her lawyer anymore. And then she didn't get another lawyer. And then the judge in the court were pressuring her that you got to file a motion by a certain date. We need to know who your lawyer is. Like, you can't go forward with a civil suit without a lawyer. So all this went back and forth and back and forth. And I did cover that in a previous video. Oh, maybe the March one or the one before that. This went back and forth. She didn't have a lawyer. She just decided to drop the case. And she started calling Howard King and saying, this is what's going on. My lawyer is talking to you for Esme Bianco and me, but he's not talking to me before he talks to you. I never told him to set up those depositions. I never did this. I never did that. She was actually complaining about her lawyer when she contacted Howard King first. And then the whole thing started coming out. And then Howard King was like, well, if that's what happened, I can't just take your word for it. You're going to have to do an affidavit. You're going to have to sign it out. So, of course, she's in a tough place. She's mad about her lawyer. She's mad about all this. She feels like the women aren't actually sticking up for her. They're more concerned, like Esme's got a better case, so we're going to stick with her, right? Esme ended up settling. All right, so that didn't work out either. All right. Well, Ashley felt like she was on the outside, I guess. I mean, I'm just thinking that's how I would feel. Things going against me this way, that they don't really have my best interest at heart. And I'd start looking at things differently. But this is why she didn't make such a credible witness. Okay. And this is why Wood and Gore, with their attorneys, pressed so hard to keep everything she said after the fact out of the court proceedings. And they successfully got it stricken from the record. But I don't think that the question was, is he unethical? I don't think Howard King did anything unethical. As a matter of fact, he produced all the emails between them to the court to show that he never asked her to do a thing. She kept contacting him. He kept saying, you got to let your lawyer contact us. She kept saying, I don't have a lawyer right now. This I want to do. I have evidence and testimony I want to talk to you about. Like, it was rough. And he produced everything to show that he did everything by the book the best that he could. Is it odd that the opposing side would contact the attorney directly like that? Yeah, it's unprecedented. Like, I mean, I'm sure it happens, but there's got to be a way to do it, you know? Yeah. Well, that was a long answer for that. I don't think so. I'll leave it up to you guys, though. Mm. All right, let me see. Amica cream. Mm. Commander, I agree. Mondays just stink. Yeah. Yes, this is true. They have spoke against him as the character carrying in his reputation. I get that. You know, a guy that needs to put on 3 facefuls of makeup to go in front of a crowd is not a scary person, in my humble opinion. Exactly. They say that the real Brian Warner, the one behind the mask, is quite a social introvert. Totally different than the character on stage. I read, when I did the first videos, and I do recommend you go back and look at the first couple of videos and look at my playlist, because I actually went on Karma Valley first when I was just a white circle with no avatar, just a voice who read legal documents and read bios on people and talked about cases. And we talked about Marilyn Manson then. And we talked about all the evidence and stuff that was coming forward on that February 2nd, well before my first video. Yeah. But yeah, I was just a white circle. I didn't even know how to get an avatar picture on there. But I was well versed in legal ease as far as reading documents every day. Because it's true. I do. And I always have loved to do that. Love to do that. Okay. And still do. He's not a devil worshiper. He's a Satanist. Those are two different things. I agree, Aaron. And it's infuriating that people don't get the difference. Okay. Commander says in high school, Marilyn Manson did have the reputation amongst the students of actually answering fan mail. He did. He's supposed to be pretty friendly dude. He has a lot of friends. Hi, Mousy. Hi, Ox. Nice to see you. And if I don't say your name or greet you, it's not that I don't care that you're here. It's that I'm way behind in chat. I'm just strolling through right now for questions. Okay. Why are we talking about accents in here? Juju, are they picking on you for your accent? Like, I had to go through years of that. I'm sorry. Like, you have a lovely voice. Don't let them turn you. Okay. I don't think her accent is foreign at all. She sounds quite American to me. And I'm speaking of Juju right now. Thank you for the coffee dropped in there, Anna, because I always need more coffee. I absolutely do. Aaron, I think you're right there. He said based on the lifestyle, he does promote in his character a lot of BDSM. A lot of the claims have to do with that lifestyle. Okay. And I would recommend reading the actual claims, except for most of the cases are dropped already. So it's kind of fruitful. But there could be mishaps or a change in lifestyle. If you're just not into it anymore, or you decided it wasn't for you, you may be finding issue with it, which you didn't find at the time. I really don't think it was assault. Usually that lifestyle, from what I understand, is very careful in making sure that people are aware of what's going to go on and what happens, and that there's true consent and agreement between adults. Hmm. Were they young and looking up to a rock star? Yes. Were they young and thinking, rock and roll and cutting edge and like just a risky lifestyle? Yes. Um, could they have changed their mind later as they grew as women? Yes. Does that mean lawsuit? Well, in this case, yes. But is it valid? I'd say there's more to the story that we have to find out. You're going to ask me again what my take on this case is, Rabbits. I've been saying I'm a little biased. I do believe it's a coordinated effort to defame the man, to cause him shame and harm, because it was easy to do to promote their documentary. I do believe that Evan Rachel Woods led a lifestyle she didn't exactly agree with later as she grew. She became a mother. She met other people. When she met Elma Gore, who, if you look into her past, is quite the predatory type person, a scammer, a GoFundMe flute, a grifter, okay, an artist, very dramatic, and not exactly truthful most of the time. Her lies are well documented in regards to Brian Warner, Marilyn Manson, and have been debunked everywhere. Almost every word she said about him could be proven to be false. But this is actually a partner in love interest of Evan Rachel Woods before they did the documentary. So it could be, and this is the speculation part, my take on the case, that she was influenced in a way that her feelings of not actually being settled with how she conducted herself as a younger woman, she needs somebody to blame. And it's easy because it will actually promote their documentary too. Now, whether she did it consciously or unconsciously or willingly or whatever, I can't even pretend. I don't want to actually put it out there that I would even know what they were thinking at the time. All I know is it seems rather convenient that after years and years and years and years, all of a sudden, there's all these accusations right before their documentary drops. All of a sudden, when they're making the documentary, they decide to contact all these people who know Brian Warner to make a support group about Brian Warner. And yes, that's documented. They contacted everybody. Nobody looked for them. Nobody came out of the woodwork and said, "Hey, I want to be part of your documentary. I heard you're talking about Marilyn Manson. Can we do it?" No. Elma Gore actively pursued everyone involved. That's documented. This part of the lawsuit, I think, will hold up. I hope it does, Rabbits. I really do. Because there are more victims here, too. Besides, They're all the victims of the women who don't get believed because of shit like this. They're all the Mhm. All right, I'm gonna bring up. Let me stop this one as evidence of that. I'm gonna bring up just a couple of days ago, 4 days ago, and I'm gonna give you this in the chat so you can read it for yourselves because it's too long for me to read all of it to you guys. But Brighton Ursula Gore, the twin of Ilmo Gore, named in the lawsuit by Brian Warner, did this piece on Medium. Okay. Dear Marilyn Manson accusers. And it starts pretty graphically. Marilyn Manson, the monster hiding in plain sight. I accused him because he was asking for it. Just look at what he's wearing. That says it all for me. Right? Yeah, Juju, if all your exes support, I do agree that if all your exes join a support group, there's an issue. Okay? There's an issue. Definitely. Okay. But anyway, this letter starts. Dear Marilyn Manson accusers, I hope this open letter finds you in a moment of reflection. As I sit down to pen these words, I am driven by a sense of urgency and disgust for survivors everywhere to share how I see you from my own experience. This is an abuse survivor talking to the people making allegations. At age 14, my innocence was shattered by manipulation and grooming. That Ilmogor witnessed, which was validated by a therapist, not documentary crews, Google, journalists looking for a story, and definitely not honeypot lawyers in pursuit to easy money, and not by my twin sister, who has used this experience of mine to shape and falsely claim what you accusers experienced with Marilyn Manson as abuse. This is from her sister. The documents shown to you in support meeting in Phoenix Rising were created for you and not based in reality of abuse to trick you into thinking that a mutually consensual relationship was a violation. It's pretty strong words. She asks all of them, empathetically, you to think of your repercussions of being falsely validated by wrong definitions shared to you by Evan Rachel Wood and my sister. Abuse is a path I was unwittingly led down as a child, marred by a chaotic home life, and led me to fall into my abuser's hands. She's upset. You called yourselves children at 19. Did you realize what you were doing to actual children survivors? This person is very upset. Brighton is very upset. Bryce very, very upset that they talk about childhood predatory, yet they all claim they were legal age and consenting. Told their parents they could date who they wanted at 19. Okay. Didn't want anyone interfering in their relationship as it was going on. Okay. I want you all to just read it. It's long. It is long. But basically, she's asking every accuser and everybody out there spreading this to just think about what they're doing. She talks about what real grooming is and what real grooming isn't. She talks about what real abuse is and how it looks like from someone who has actually been abused to watch this. Okay. She asked all of the accusers this. Did you go to fun Hollywood parties? Did you have your freedom of your career? And did you have a job? Did you have money to escape to a hotel if needed? Where were your family and friends? Did they ask you why? Or did you gloat about bagging a celebrity? Because I can tell you, if I had the option to leave after that shower, I would have taken it. But instead, I was told that I was lucky because I was ugly. She's asking them point blank, how dare you? How dare you compare yourself to actual victims when you were on his arm for years, celebrating at parties, bragging about your lifestyle, telling the world how happy you were, saying it was cool and edgy to live that lifestyle, that he was misunderstood, that there's nothing wrong with BDSM as long as it's consensual between two people. But then years later, you change your mind and say it was all done against your will. How? Because you were independently wealthy at the time too. Every single one of these women had their own bank accounts. Listen, Esme Bianco and Ashley Smith Morgan came from foreign countries to stay with him in his home. During the so-called abuse periods, they left. And you know what? They stayed in contact with him for those years. And they actually came back, especially Esme Bianco, and stayed in his house again and continued a relationship a year after what she claims were the first violations against her will. Never broke contact with him, got away to her country again, went back to England, and then still continued the relationship. Does that really sound? Now, I know that abusers can be mentally abusive too, and you could feel trapped. But if you actually got out on a plane and flew to a foreign country surrounded by your friends and family where he can only get to you by text or phone, don't answer. If she really was that bad, why did she continue? Why did she willingly go back? She went back for career. You know why she got pissed? She went back for a record deal that didn't go through. And that's when she filed her suit. Because after all it is, when she came back again, after they broke up and then got back together a year or so later and came back, and it didn't pan out for her career-wise. I mean, she was in Game of Thrones. She wanted that record deal. Anyway, I know that's speculation on my part. I'm being a little snippy about her. I mean, she has settled, so it's not actually going to go to court. So it's a little unfair. But when you look at those kind of things, you can understand why someone by like Bright and Gore is upset. And they should be. They actually should be. Okay? Anyway. I will say, let me look for some more things. I do want you to check all of these things out. Also, here is the Twitter for Stand with Marilyn Manson, which is Justice for Marilyn Manson. Okay. There's always great information there. She also has an IG. I recommend that's where the videos are. You definitely should follow there. Okay. She's got the statements on from Blair Burke. She's got videos in regards to, is Evan Rachel Woods under investigation? She makes good ones. She's also got the association of like Senator Susan Rubio, who from the 22nd district, LA County representative, who's really close, who used both Esme Bianco and Evan Rachel Woods to promote her abuse platforms here, her victim advocacy. That's a little politically connected. And we must admit that Evan Rachel Woods is very politically connected. Okay. And with full backing of the YouTube movement, it makes it even harder. So I say here, okay, when they say that it's actually Brian Warner who's terrorizing everybody, pulling the strings, making things unfair and used against them, I say it doesn't look like that to me. D Rabbits, when you ask me what I think about this case, I think it smells like, what did Juju say? Microwave fish? Yes, that's strong. It stinks. It really does stink. And I just hope he gets his day in court. And I want him to get his devices. Okay. I really do. And when you talk about violence and everything, there is one thing, one small thing that did get settled in this July that could be held against Marilyn Manson or Brian Warner, if you want to say. Okay. According to a filing by Howard King, or I don't know if Howard King represented him in this. This was in New Hampshire. Okay. There was a photographer who was assaulted. He says he was assaulted. It was a misdemeanor assault charge back in 2019. He was accused of blowing his nose on a videographer. Brian Warner was taken to court for blowing his nose on a videographer. That Warner decided to plead on that charge, and whatever the higher charge would have been of some kind of assault was dismissed. He accept if the judge allowed the plea to go through. This was the end of July, and I didn't see that it was approved yet, but I think it probably was, because he's just going to have a $1,200 fine and 20 hours of community service and have to notify New Hampshire whenever he's coming in to do performances for 2 years so that they know if they need extra police or whatever. But that's been going on for a while, from back in 2019. The videographer pressed charges on him, and there was like a whole big thing when I'll tell you how this turned into a media circus. Because on February 2nd, years later than 2019, when all of the accusers came out and orchestrated all of their stories, on Instagram and Twitter and all over social media, all at the same time. So did the sheriff's department in New Hampshire to say, we will get Brian Warren. We have an open warrant for his arrest should he come to New Hampshire. He's not welcome here. Like, he got his 15 minutes of fame too. That was hysterical to me. Yeah, because like they know where he was. He's a famous person. He's all over the place, but they really weren't looking for him very hard if they couldn't find him to serve him, But they really weren't that concerned about it, until he hit the papers again, and it was a big deal. That was kind. Yeah, I'm giggling. It's because that's like the most violent thing I can find, on there. Photographer or paparazzi? They identify themselves as a videographer. I do not know. It is common that he hires people to follow him around to film stuff for his shows and everything, especially when he's in character brilliant. So I'm not sure if he hired this person or if they were hired by the record company. They could have been hired by public relations department. They could have been hired by actually the arena or the performing center that where he was, or it could have been a news organization. I'm not sure. But it says videographer, so make of it what you will. Hmm. Okay. So I think if there's not any more questions, I think I'm going to end this with that. Please, if you do come up with questions or there's more you want to know about Marilyn Manson's case, I am going to keep following it. Please give Kelly justice for Kelly, and I stand for justice for Marilyn Manson. A tweet, a like, a follow. Check out their stuff. Colonel Kurtz is doing great stuff on these too, and so is Andrea Burkhart. She's an attorney. I became aware of her during the Johnny Depp trial. She gave very clear legal perception and kind of a twist on everything. And I think she's spot on about a lot of these. So I did link that video below too, if you'd like to give her a like and a follow also. I would say on this case, you'd be right if you say I'm being a little bit biased right now going into it. I will wait until it plays out in court. I think the best thing is that it doesn't. But because I don't really think that Brian Warner should have to pay all this money to get back a reputation that has already been so wrongly damaged. There's no award that they're going to be able to get that's going to fix what people think. Now, maybe it'll make up for the loss of his record contract and not being able to work as well over the last few years, because he hasn't. He is still putting out music. He still has his friends. A lot of people walked away from him because of it. Mm. But a lot of people stayed, just like Johnny Depp. Mm. It's easy to think that he's guilty based on the character that he's plays. But I say look at the evidence, and I'm looking at both of it, okay? And I think that Brian Warner has made some clear, he's drawn some lines here that are easy to follow as far as like how things played out. It just seems rather convenient that Evan Rachel Woods, after 13 years, needed to bring together a whole bunch of people to support her documentary and trash Brian Warner at the same time. It just seems rather convenient. It seemed like a money grab. It well, seems like exactly the kind of thing Ilma Gore has done in the past and is known for. Sorry. Well, actually, sorry, not sorry. Not taking that one back. That's how I feel about that one. She has been very, very shady. Follow the money. Exactly, Sleep. The only one who made any money on these accusations are the two of them in their documentary. That production company, that was the two of them. Spearheaded by Ilma Gore with the ideas. Okay. None of this came forward before. She had to get forging an FBI letter. Come on. Sticky notes that say actually how to get someone to believe. Why do you have to write down on let me just be clear about the sticky note. The sticky note that became so important to Brian Warner's case was because it listed the type of accusations that all of the women said in a row. Like, you did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that? They actually typed out a questionnaire for people to join the group. Did this happen to you? Did this happen to you? It's leading. Okay. I understand that people coming out of a lifestyle may have feels about stuff. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying get the therapy you need. Do it. Yes. But was it the other person's fault that you were in that lifestyle? Was it the other person's fault that you actually consented and put yourself there? Mhm. Are you actually going to all get together and say you had no control? He's so all powerful with his brain. He got you all to do whatever you wanted. Liam, that's the term I needed to put up there, and I'm going to put it up there. They poisoned the well. Exactly. And legally, that's prosecutable. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally. This is my take on the case, rabbits. A poisoned well trying to do a wonder. Orchestrated. It does look like it was orchestrated. If not orchestrated, then, well, oh gosh, just so damn convenient. The timing of it all, huh? Mm. Anyway, that made my hour and a half. Thank you all for being here. I do appreciate you all taking the time to join me in the chat and to ask questions and to go over all this stuff. And like I said, if anything comes up, you want to know more about it, or you have some questions or directions, or just say, hey, go to the back of the videos, like them, share them, whatever. It does help actually with the algorithm if we get some engagement going there. Although I do all appreciate you right here in chat, and anybody who watches later. Anybody that has anything additional to add to this, or you have more information, please contact me. Yes, my DMs are open, and I do like to gather the information for all, in regards to this. It has been a couple of months since I spoke about Marilyn Manson, but it did, after reading what Brighton Gore wrote a couple of days ago, I really had to come forward quicker. You know, I think I could have taken a little more time and did a damn bang up better video for you, like my first one, but I needed to get this back out here where the cases were sooner rather than later. It was taking too long. Yeah. So that's why we did it live. Tomorrow I'll be back 9:30 with some updates on a couple of other cases. I'll be back 9:30 again. Y'all have a great night. Sorry to put you through this on a Monday. Not exactly my favorite way to do it, but I'm glad I did it. And I'm glad you were all here to join me with it. And I will see you. I will see you tomorrow. And I forgot my banner again. Fish Nerd, you forgot to remind me. Can I blame you, Fish Nerd? Actually, it's not your fault. I should be better at this. It's been a while. Hey, Mousy, thank you. And good night, everyone. And thank you for being here, all of you, and for the good questions, okay? Y'all make it worth it. So Well, I already played the outro once, but I'll play it again instead of the intro. Sorry, Mocking, I just messed it up, but it's Monday. You can't really blame me. Yeah, Mousy, I'm gonna blame Fish Nerd. He didn't remind me about my banner. Now I gotta play it during the outro. Okay. I'll see you all tomorrow at 9:30, I hope. Good night.